distilled and presented in a way that I, at 4 and 5 and 6 years old.
Ron Howard has spent most of his life talking about movies, storytelling, and the people who helped him become the artist he is today. But whenever fans ask him about the Andy Griffith Show, his voice often softens, and his memories seem to glow with a warm and gentle kind of light. For many years, people wondered what Ron truly felt about Andy Griffith, the man who played his father on TV and guided him through the tricky world of acting when he was still very young. Ron has always been grateful, but he rarely opened up in detail about how deep that bond went. Now, after many quiet, respectful years, Ron has begun to share a fuller picture of their relationship, how Andy influenced him, cared for him, protected him, and shaped the way he saw acting, storytelling, and even life itself. Ron's story does not begin on the set of the famous show but in his early childhood, long before he ever stepped in front of a camera with Andy Griffith by his side. Born in 1954 to Rance and Jean Howard, both working actors, Ron grew up in a home where performing was not something strange or glamorous but simply a part of daily life. His parents helped him learn lines, understand characters, and respect the people he worked with. They told him never to let success go to his head and always stay kind. By the time Ron was 5 years old, he had already acted in his first film, and people around him noticed that he had a serious, honest look about him that made him stand out. When he was cast as Opie Taylor, the curious and good-hearted son of Sheriff Andy Taylor, Ron was only 6. He was small, shy, and still learning to understand the huge world of television studios. The bright lights, the moving cameras, the large crew, and the long days were overwhelming for a young child. But everything changed the day he met Andy Griffith. Andy walked over to him, gave him a warm smile, shook his hand gently, and said hello in such a calm, caring way that Ron instantly felt safe. Ron would later say that Andy made him feel like he belonged, like he was not just a child pretending to act, but someone who mattered. Andy treated him as a friend and a partner from the very beginning. During the early days of filming, Andy often knelt down to talk to Ron at eye level so the young actor would not feel intimidated. If Ron stumbled over a line or struggled to understand a scene, Andy would patiently guide him. He explained the meaning of the scripts, the emotions behind the characters, and the reason certain choices mattered. He did not force Ron to copy him, instead, he taught him how to think like an actor. Many of the scenes that fans love, the talks on the porch, the heartfelt moments in the sheriff's office, the quiet lessons about honesty or responsibility, worked so well because Andy always made sure Ron knew what the scene was about and how Opie was supposed to feel. Over time, their bond grew deeper. Andy became more than a co-star, he slowly became a father figure, someone Ron trusted completely. When Ron became nervous before filming in front of a live audience, Andy shared stories about his own stage fright. When Ron asked how stories were shaped, Andy showed him how writers built scenes and how directors used the camera to guide emotion. He taught Ron that storytelling was not just about saying lines, it was about truth, heart, and humanity. Off-screen, Andy invited Ron and his family to his home. He cooked for them, told stories about his childhood in North Carolina, and joked around in a way that made Ron feel relaxed and happy. These quiet moments made Ron feel valued not just as an actor but as a young boy who needed guidance. Other cast members often said they admired how gently Andy spoke to Ron, how he protected him from pressure, and how he made sure Ron still enjoyed being a kid while working on a famous show. Their real-life father-son bond was one of the main reasons the show itself felt so real and warm to viewers. As the years passed and the show became a cultural treasure, Ron continued to learn from Andy every day. Andy taught him patience during long filming sessions. He taught him to stay humble when fame grew. He taught him the meaning of kindness in a business that could be stressful and demanding. When the show ended in 1968, Ron was older, more confident, and ready to take on new roles, but the lessons Andy gave him stayed with him forever. Even after they no longer worked together daily, Andy checked on Ron from time to time, offering encouragement as Ron finished school, took on new projects, and began dreaming of becoming a director. For fans, this friendship was something beautiful on screen, but for Ron, it was a gift that would shape the rest of his life. Many years later, when speaking about Andy, Ron would say that Andy did not simply act like a father on television, he behaved like one in real life, offering love, wisdom, and support that went far beyond the camera. And when Andy passed away, Ron said that he felt he had lost not just a mentor, but one of the most important people he had ever known. As Ron Howard moved into his teenage years, his career continued to grow, and although he no longer saw Andy Griffith every day, the influence Andy had on him never faded. After the Andy Griffith Show, Ron starred in the hit series Happy Days, where he played Richie Cunningham. It was a bright, cheerful show that connected with a younger generation, and it helped Ron become a household name again. But what most people did not know was that during breaks on set, Ron often stood behind the camera, watching how directors set up shots, moved actors around, and built stories visually. This interest came directly from Andy's advice years earlier. Andy had told him that acting was only one piece of the larger puzzle and that a real storyteller paid attention to everything. Andy encouraged Ron to learn from every person on set, to study decisions, and to ask questions. So when Ron began exploring directing, he did so with the confidence Andy helped build in him. Ron has said many times that he never originally dreamed of being an actor. Instead, he dreamed of telling stories. Andy saw that spark in him early and pushed him toward it gently, never forcing him but always inspiring him. When Ron directed his first major film, Grand Theft Auto, Andy reached out to offer his support. He congratulated Ron, encouraged him to keep growing, and reminded him that leadership in filmmaking meant treating everyone with respect. Ron took that advice to heart and carried it into every project he made. As the years went on, Ron directed films that touched millions of people. Movies like Apollo 13 and A Beautiful Mind were deeply emotional and visually powerful, and critics praised how Ron brought humanity into every scene. This way of working came from the values Andy taught him: focus on people, care about the emotional truth, and never let pride cloud your judgment. Ron said that on every set, no matter how big the budget or how famous the actors, he tried to create an environment like the one Andy created for him, a place of safety, kindness, and creativity. When people praise Ron for his calm leadership and positive energy, he often credits Andy's example. While Ron's career thrived, Andy Griffith continued his own journey, starring in shows like Matlock and performing in films and music projects. Although their lives took different paths, they stayed connected over the years. They shared letters, phone calls, and occasional reunions. During special tribute events, Ron always spoke with deep respect about Andy, sharing stories that made people smile, laugh, or even cry. Andy would smile proudly at Ron's success, joking that he always knew little Ronnie would go far. Their bond never faded, and each time they met, it felt natural and warm, as if no time had passed at all. During one reunion, Ron said that Andy's laugh had not changed since the first day they met, and hearing it again made him feel like that 6-year-old boy walking onto the set of Mayberry for the first time. As Andy grew older and his health declined, Ron visited him when he could. These final conversations were quieter, more personal, more reflective. They did not talk much about fame or awards. Instead, they talked about life, family, and the meaning of doing good work with honesty. Andy told Ron how proud he was, not only of the films he directed but of the man he had become. Ron expressed his gratitude, telling Andy that his influence had guided him through every important stage of his life. Ron has shared parts of these conversations publicly, but he has kept one final message from Andy private. He says that it was something deeply meaningful, something that still guides him today. Fans have often wondered what that message was, but Ron believes it belongs only to him and the memory of Andy, the man who changed his life. Ron now speaks more openly about Andy because he feels enough time has passed for him to share these memories with peace and clarity. He says that as he grows older, he understands more fully how rare and special their bond was. Child actors do not always get supportive mentors, and television sets are not always kind environments. But Andy created a place where Ron could learn, grow, and dream without fear. That gift shaped not just Ron's childhood but his entire career. When Ron directs actors today, he tries to give them the same patience Andy gave him. When he works with young performers, he kneels down to their level just like Andy used to do, making sure they feel seen and respected. Andy's influence passes through Ron into every project he creates and into every young actor he guides. Ron also sees Andy's lessons reflected in his personal life. Ron has been married to his wife Cheryl since 1975, and he often says that the values Andy taught him, kindness, honesty, and staying grounded, helped him be a better husband and father. Ron and Cheryl have 4 children, including actress and filmmaker Bryce Dallas Howard, and Ron has always tried to maintain a strong family foundation, just as Andy encouraged. Ron believes that keeping his family close is part of what has helped him succeed without losing his sense of self. Even after working with some of the biggest stars in Hollywood, Ron still speaks with the same gentle sincerity that fans first saw in Opie Taylor, and much of that comes from Andy's early guidance. Today, when fans look back on the Andy Griffith Show, they see more than an old black-and-white sitcom. They see a piece of American history, a warm and comforting world that feels safe, honest, and full of heart. What many do not realize is that the show felt real because the relationships behind the scenes were real. Ron and Andy truly cared for each other, and that love shaped the father-son moments on screen in a way that has lasted more than 60 years. When Ron talks about the show now, he says that the lessons Andy taught him still guide him every single day. One of those lessons was that good storytelling is always about people, not spectacle. Andy believed that an audience connects with truth, humor, and heart, not flashy tricks. Ron applies that idea to his films, creating stories that focus on emotion and human experience. Whether he is directing a historical drama, a thriller, or a simple family story, he always tries to keep the heart of the story clear and honest. He says this is something he learned as a boy sitting next to Andy between takes, listening to him talk about life. Another lesson Andy shared with Ron was the importance of kindness on set. Ron says that Andy treated every person, whether they were an actor, a writer, or someone carrying equipment, with the same respect. He believed that a show worked best when everyone felt valued. Ron later realized that this was not common in Hollywood, but it was something he carried with him as a director. On Ron's sets, people often say they feel comfortable and heard. Ron likes to listen, encourage ideas, and create a team environment instead of a strict hierarchy. This approach comes straight from Andy's example. Ron says that filmmaking is an act of teamwork, and Andy taught him that even the smallest gesture of kindness can make a long workday feel easier. Looking back, Ron also sees how Andy helped him understand responsibility. As a child actor, Ron sometimes felt pressure or confusion about balancing work and school. Andy always reminded him that education mattered and that success should never come at the cost of personal development. Andy encouraged him to stay curious, keep learning, and stay connected to family. These lessons guided Ron as he moved from acting to directing, built a long marriage, and raised children. He credits Andy with helping him stay grounded through difficult times in the industry. Ron believes that the legacy he and Andy created together goes beyond entertainment. Their bond became a model for how adults can support children in demanding environments. Many former child actors talk about the difficulties of growing up on television, but Ron had a different experience because Andy protected him emotionally. Andy made sure Ron felt understood, respected, and supported. Because of this, Ron grew up with a positive view of the industry and a desire to pay that kindness forward. When Ron works with young actors today, he takes the time to explain scenes, offer gentle advice, and speak to them in a calm and patient way, just as Andy did for him. The emotional power of their relationship also plays a role in how fans remember the show. The father-son bond between Sheriff Taylor and Opie feels authentic because it came from a real place. Their porch talks, fishing trips, and heartfelt lessons touched viewers because Andy and Ron were not just performing, they were connecting on screen the same way they connected behind the scenes. Ron says he did not have to act much during those moments because Andy's presence made him feel safe and open. That natural chemistry has allowed the show to remain timeless, with new generations discovering it and finding comfort in its gentle charm. Ron continues to speak about Andy with deep gratitude. He shares stories in interviews, tributes, and documentaries, reminding people of Andy's talent, wisdom, and kindness. Ron says that whenever he faces a creative problem or a tough decision, he sometimes thinks about what Andy might have done. This quiet reflection helps guide him, even now. When Ron won major awards for A Beautiful Mind, he felt that Andy would have been proud. He said that the values Andy taught him were part of the foundation of every achievement he has made. Ron believes that Andy's influence will continue to touch audiences for generations, not only through the show but through the lessons Andy passed on to him, which Ron then passes on to others. In the final years of Andy's life, their meetings became more emotional. Ron said he felt grateful for every chance he had to visit. They talked about family, the meaning of work, and how lucky they felt to have shared such a special time together. When Andy passed away, Ron said that he lost not just a co-star but someone who shaped the most important parts of his life. Ron still carries Andy's final words with him, keeping them private but close to his heart. He says those words guide him in moments when he needs strength or clarity. Today, their story remains a reminder of how powerful mentorship can be. Andy Griffith helped a young boy find confidence, purpose, and direction. Ron Howard carried those lessons into adulthood, into filmmaking, into his family life, and into every set he leads. Their bond shows that kindness, patience, and love can create something that lasts far beyond a television screen. When fans watch The Andy Griffith Show now, they see more than a piece of entertainment. They see a friendship that shaped 2 lives and touched millions. Ron often encourages people to think about the mentors in their own lives, the people who influence them quietly and lovingly. He says that relationships like the one he had with Andy are rare and should be treasured. As he continues directing films and sharing stories, Ron keeps Andy's spirit alive, proving that some bonds never fade. Their relationship remains one of the most touching and enduring connections in Hollywood history, a reminder that true kindness can echo across a lifetime and far beyond. As the years continue to pass, Ron Howard finds himself thinking more often about the long path he has walked and the people who helped guide him along the way. Whenever he reflects on the journey from a young boy in overalls on the set of The Andy Griffith Show to a respected director known around the world, his memories always return to Andy Griffith. Ron says that Andy's influence feels almost like a steady hand on his shoulder, gently reminding him of what truly matters. Ron has spoken many times about the pressure that can come with fame. He has worked with many celebrities, handled large studio budgets, and faced deadlines that could make anyone nervous. But he never allowed himself to lose the values Andy taught him, values like patience, humility, and treating everyone with fairness. Even now, when Ron enters a film set filled with expensive equipment and busy crew members, he tries to greet people with a simple smile, the same way Andy greeted him when he was 6 years old. Ron says that a smile can make hard work easier, and that idea came directly from Andy. Beyond filmmaking, Ron also carries Andy's lessons into the way he lives his personal life. He has always tried to raise his children with love, understanding, and honesty. Ron is proud that all of his children grew up with strong values and supportive hearts. He believes that the example Andy set, being warm, patient, and steady, helped him become a better father. When Ron talks to his kids about his childhood, he shares stories not only of fame and acting but also of kindness and the way Andy looked after him. He says these stories remind his children that success means little if you do not stay grounded and good-hearted. Ron's daughter Bryce Dallas Howard, who is also a successful actress and director, has said in interviews that her father often talks about Andy when offering advice. She said that the wisdom passed from Andy to Ron continues to travel through their family like a quiet, gentle echo. Ron also feels that Andy helped shape the way he understands storytelling. Andy believed that good stories were not about noise or spectacle but about people, heart, and truth. Those words have guided Ron for decades. When Ron chooses projects, he looks for stories that say something important about courage, love, struggle, or hope. He likes to explore characters who grow and learn, just as he learned from Andy. In many ways, Andy's influence can be felt in Ron's work even when his name appears only as director in the credits. Ron says that the way he blocks scenes, the way he asks actors to slow down and find emotional honesty, and the way he works closely with writers all come from habits he formed as a child while watching Andy. Those early lessons, given on a simple set in a small town called Mayberry, helped build the foundation of an entire directing career. There are moments when Ron watches reruns of the Andy Griffith Show, not for work, not for study, but simply to feel close to the past. He sometimes laughs at the jokes, smiles at the familiar scenes, and even feels emotional during the touching father-son moments he shared with Andy. Ron says that watching those episodes is like looking through a window into his childhood. He remembers what it felt like to sit on that wooden porch, to hold a fishing pole while listening to Andy's voice, or to walk through the streets of the fictional town. For Ron, those scenes are not just performances, they are memories of real warmth and love. When fans tell Ron how much the show means to them, he feels grateful because he knows that the warmth they feel is real. It was born from a genuine bond between him and Andy. Over the years, Ron has been asked many times to describe Andy in just a few words. He always finds this question difficult because, to him, Andy was many things: a mentor, a friend, a father figure, and a guiding light. But if he must choose, Ron often says Andy was steady. Andy was steady in his kindness, steady in his humor, steady in his patience, and steady in his character. Ron says that this steadiness gave him a sense of safety and freedom as a child actor. Knowing Andy was there made Ron feel comfortable taking risks, asking questions, and trying new things. This helped shape Ron's ability to direct actors today. He tries to create the same sense of steady support for them, knowing that when an actor feels safe, they can give their best performance. One of the most touching things Ron has shared is that he often talks to Andy in his thoughts. Not in a mystical way, but in a personal, reflective way. When he faces a difficult decision, he sometimes imagines what Andy might say. Would Andy tell him to slow down? To think with compassion? To let go of pride? Ron says that thinking of Andy during these moments helps him stay true to his values. This private connection shows how deeply Andy influenced him. Even though Andy is no longer here, his words and example continue to help Ron navigate life. Ron is also aware of how much fans still love Andy Griffith. People from all over the world send letters, messages, and stories about how Andy's work touched their hearts. Ron often reads these messages and feels proud to have been part of something so meaningful. He says that the love fans have for Andy is one of the reasons he continues to speak about him. Ron wants people to understand the depth of Andy's kindness and the impact he had not only on viewers but also on him personally. Ron believes that telling these stories keeps Andy's spirit alive and helps new generations discover the warmth and heart that Andy brought to the world. Looking toward the future, Ron hopes that the values he learned from Andy will continue to guide others, young actors, filmmakers, and fans who find comfort in simple, honest stories. Ron says that in a world filled with fast technology, loud media, and constant change, the gentle lessons Andy taught him are more important than ever. Kindness still matters. Patience still matters. Heart still matters. Andy showed Ron that greatness comes not from noise or fame, but from quiet strength and genuine care for others. Ron hopes that by sharing their story, he can inspire others to live with the same honesty and kindness. Ron knows that he has been blessed with many achievements, but he always returns to the belief that Andy Griffith gave him the most important gift of all, the gift of guidance during the most important years of his life. Their bond began when Ron was just a boy, but it grew into a lifelong connection filled with respect and love. Ron says that when he thinks about his journey, Andy's presence feels like a warm light in the background, guiding him gently forward. And while the world changes and time moves on, the lessons Andy shared remain as clear and meaningful as ever. Ron hopes that by speaking openly about his gratitude, he can honor Andy's memory and continue passing on the wisdom of a man who shaped so many lives with his kindness and heart. As Ron Howard continues to grow older, he has become even more aware of how rare his relationship with Andy Griffith truly was. In the entertainment world, many young performers struggle with stress, pressure, and confusion as they try to understand the responsibilities placed on them. But Ron often says that he was lucky because Andy made the journey safe and meaningful. When people ask Ron how he avoided the difficulties that so many child actors face, he always gives the same answer: Andy Griffith made sure I stayed a kid. Andy encouraged him to play, to laugh, to take breaks, and to enjoy childhood instead of seeing it slip away. This protection helped Ron remain grounded, even when the show became extremely popular. Ron says he never felt like he was losing himself, because Andy and his parents created a circle of love around him that kept him secure. Now that Ron is a mentor to younger filmmakers and actors, he understands how much energy and care Andy put into supporting him. Guiding a child performer takes patience, compassion, and awareness, and Andy gave all of that without ever making it feel like a burden. Ron often reflects on this when working with young talent. He believes that part of honoring Andy's memory is treating others with the same gentle respect he once received. On set, Ron always checks in with children to make sure they understand the scenes and feel comfortable. He talks to them softly, listens to their concerns, and encourages them to express their ideas. Many parents have thanked Ron for being so thoughtful, and Ron always smiles because he knows exactly where he learned that approach. Ron has said that one of the biggest lessons he learned from Andy was the idea that slow and steady can be more powerful than rushing. Andy believed that if something is done with care, honesty, and heart, it will last longer and mean more. Ron notices that many things in today's world move quickly: television shows, movies, social media, and even conversations. But when he feels overwhelmed by the noise of modern life, he remembers the quiet moments he shared with Andy on set, sitting on a porch, listening to birds, talking about simple truths. These memories help him slow down, breathe, and find clarity. Ron believes that these small, steady lessons helped him build a long, stable career without losing his sense of purpose. Even now, people often come up to Ron and say that watching the Andy Griffith Show feels like returning to a safe place. They talk about how the show helped them through hard times, how it reminded them of family values, or how it gave them comfort during childhood. Ron always listens with gratitude, because he knows that the show's emotional power came from real love behind the scenes. He says that the world may not be as simple as Mayberry, but the feelings the show created, the warmth, the honesty, the kindness, are real and timeless. Andy taught him that stories with heart can help people feel less alone, and Ron has tried to create that same feeling in many of his own films. As Ron looks back at the long road he has walked, he understands something important. Andy Griffith did not just prepare him for acting, he prepared him for life. Andy taught him how to stay calm during chaos, how to treat others with dignity, how to stay humble during success, and how to stay strong during challenges. Ron carries these lessons like a quiet compass, guiding him no matter where he goes. And though Andy is no longer here, Ron feels that he is still teaching him, still supporting him, and still reminding him of the true meaning of kindness. Ron hopes that as long as he continues to share these stories, Andy's gentle light will continue touching the hearts of people around the world.